Georgia did very well as a royal colony. Georgia added a great deal to the British economy. They exported rice, indigo, deerskin, lumber, beef, and pork. Georgia officially became a royal colony when the trustee period ended in 1752. This meant that the Crown of England oversaw the control of Georgia. Parliament had to pass a charter in order for Georgia to become an official royal colony. This process began in 1752 after Parliament dismissed the trustees. It took 2 years for the charter to go through Parliament. Georgia did not get its first official royal governor until 1754. Colonial Georgia was a land of farmers. Most women worked in the home. They prepared food, cared for clothing, and planted and harvested. Children also contributed to the growth of the colonies. Colonial transportation and communication included boats used for shipping. Stagecoaches were available, but a slow mode of transportation. Many old Indian trails were used, and newspapers were read mainly in the cities. News often was old by the time the paper would arrive to rural areas. Education in the colonies included schoolings, which took place in the home or church. Boys were taught practical skills, girls learned homemaking skills. Apprentices learned more specific skills from a master craftsman. Public schools began in New England and only boys attended. Wealthy families in the South hired private tutors or had their sons schooled in Europe. Primitive, old field schools opened for boys from common families. Religion in colonial Georgia included the Anglican Church or Church of England, which was made the official church of Georgia colony in 1758. Church attendance was expected, and shorter sermons were usually given, and music was common. Moravians and Jews also practiced religion in Georgia. The type of leisure activities in the southern colonies included fox hunting, horse races, week-long parties with friends and relatives were also popular. Food was central to the large social gatherings. Children's games included jump rope, hoops, tennis, London Bridge, hopscotch, leapfrog. They also had yo-yos and puzzles. Storytelling was also very popular. As for romance and marriage, girls often married early in their teens. Courtships took place at dances, churches, or during supervised home visits. Weddings were day-long affairs with great celebrations. Some wealthy families arranged marriages for business gain. Husbands were expected to provide. Wives could not own property at this time. During this time, Georgia was in the midst of a change in colonial government status. Georgia had been a proprietary colony which was governed by a board of trustees. Georgia ceased to be a proprietary colony in 1752. The royal colony was directly governed by the king. Georgia became a royal colony in 1752. Some people returned to Georgia who had left the colony while it was proprietary. The first royal government was led by Naval Captain John Reynolds, the first royal governor, who arrived in 1754. Reynolds introduced the idea of self-government. A two-chamber legislature was set up, a Commons House of Assembly, which was the lower house, and the Governor's Council, which was the upper house. The Court of Conscience settled disputes, overseen by a justice of the peace. Only people owning 50 or more acres of land could vote. During this time outside of Georgia, Spain claimed Florida and Mexico. France claimed the land from Louisiana to the Great Lakes and part of Canada. New Orleans to the south and Detroit to the north anchored French settlements. Great Britain had established 13 colonies along the Atlantic coast. Now we'll talk about the origins of the French and Indian War. France and Great Britain wanted the treasures of the American continent. Both countries feared the other would gain the most power. France had the stronger army with more experienced leadership, but Britain had a better navy. Both sides had allies with certain Indian tribes. Both sides also claimed the Ohio River Valley area, which was more than 200,000 square miles. The French built several forts in the area. Many Indians sided with the French. The Virginia governor sent Captain George Washington with soldiers to Fort Necessity near today's Pittsburgh. A battle erupted. The war soon spread to Europe, and by 1758 the British controlled the Ohio Valley. The Treaty of Paris, in 1763, ended the war. What this meant for Georgia was that the Treaty of Paris set the Georgia's western boundary at the Mississippi River. Proclamation of 1763, with King George III, Georgia's southern boundary was set at the St. Mary's River. Georgia colonists could not settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. The Cherokee and the Creek tribes gave up land claims north of Augusta and in the coastal region. It was also during this time that Georgia's first assembly met, in Savannah in 1755. It met and passed bills to repair and build roads. It also organized a militia and had codes created to limit the rights of slaves. Governor Reynolds was replaced at this time briefly in 1757 by Captain Henry Ellis. Henry Ellis believed Savannah was one of the world's hottest places. Colonists immigrated to Georgia from South Carolina and the West Indies. They were offered large land grants, and slavery increased from 3,600 slaves by 1759. The economy flourished, and more farms and goods were available to buy. In 1761, Ellis left and became the royal governor of Nova Scotia in Canada. Governor James Wright wanted to expand Georgia's western lands to settlers. He completed Savannah's defenses by strengthening forts and building palisades, or fences made of sharpened stakes. Sunbury became Georgia's official port of entry. Land purchases increased greatly, and more schools were established, but for upper-class children only. In fact, it was at this time that a new term emerged, Georgia crackers. People from Virginia and the Carolinas settled into middle and western parts of the colony. Plantation owners viewed them as undesirable people. Soon these lower-class peoples were called crackers, which was meant as an insult. Crackers were not welcomed and thought of as ones who did not obey the colony's laws.